Supreme Court has in fact rapped the centre and asked them why should a permanent commission for Coast Guard not be done. In fact, Supreme Court has asked for permanent commission for women in Coast Guard. Let me go across to my colleague Sunil Prabhu with more details on this story. Sunil, last week we did hear Supreme Court actually coming down very heavily on the centre and asking why is the centre so patriarchal when it comes to permanent commission for women in Coast Guard, and similar observations were made today. So tell us what really happened in the court today.
Well, they're basically nudging the centre to come out with an affidavit, and very clearly, even though the Attorney General was trying to argue and say that I've asked the Coast Guard, and this is different from the Navy or the Air Force in terms of how things can be done, and then the Chief Justice of India had to really nudge the government and say that you have to look at it in its entirety. The fact that we are now at a stage where the permanent commission for Coast Guards, we are in 2024, and saying either you do it or we will have to do it.
Right, Sunil. Also, explain to us the significance of a women's commission in the Coast Guard, and some of the observations by the CGI today were really feminist and really empowering to women. Tell us about that.
Well, he's always been in the forefront for women's rights, and in this context, the centre has been dilly-dallying. As you understand, this is a paramilitary force, and a joint decision between the Ministry of Home Affairs as well as the Defence Ministry have to be taken on an important matter like this. And it's in this context that the Government of India has to come clean. It's the second nudge that the Government of the Chief Justice of India has told the Attorney General that we are in 2024 and definitely women have a right to have a permanent commission in the Coast Guard, and they should be equal. You can't have a service not permitting women, and that's I think the moot point. I think ultimately the Government of India has to see the writing on the wall. This was also because of the nudging of the Chief Justice of India and the Supreme Court earlier that even the armed forces in NDA had to make a provision for in India, Pune, to ensure women cadets were given space. These are big major shifts and breakthroughs to help not only women's empowerment but to ensure in letter and spirit, rather than make it a political point, that you actually implement and ensure that they get a space in the armed forces as well as paramilitary forces, rather than just lip service.